You don't need anyone to hurt you, because sometimes you are the one doing it, quietly but consistently, every day. There are people who live a life without any bruises on the outside, no one yelling at them, no one hitting them, no one hurting them. But inside they are a wreck and a destruction of trust, fading joy and a dwindling sense of self-worth. It's not because the world is too harsh. It's because they've quietly poisoned their minds with self-destructive mechanisms that they don't even recognize. We often think that self-destruction is something extreme, like suicide, addiction, self-harm. But in reality, self-destruction starts with very small, very normal and seemingly logical things. It could be a phrase you repeat to yourself, "I don't deserve this." It could be a habit you think is harmless. Just push through. It's okay to be tired for a bit. It could be a deeply rooted belief, "I have to do better again and again to be worthy." Self-destruction isn't an action. It's a system of beliefs and responses shaped by the past, by unresolved wounds, by the invisible pressures of society, family, or even yourself. And this system is maintained by small habits. Blaming yourself when you make mistakes, hiding emotions when you're tired, comparing yourself to others, clinging to a toxic stability, living just to be recognized. You might still go to work on time, still smile when you need to, still make small talk, still meet deadlines, but inside you've been broken for a long time. And the scariest thing is that you've gotten used to it. Why do you often feel tired without knowing why? Why does life feel bland, even when there's no crisis? Why do you always feel like something's missing, even though everything seems fine? Maybe it's because you're living with self-destructive mechanisms that you've never properly named. This article is not meant to make you feel bad. It's not about blaming, nor is it about accusing. The sole purpose of this article is to help you identify, because when you don't see clearly, you can't change. In the next section, we'll uncover the 7 most common self-destructive mental mechanisms, the invisible traps that most of us have fallen into. And most importantly, I'll show you how to escape them, because you deserve a strong mind, a free life, and an inner peace where you no longer have to pretend to be fine. Mechanism 1, self-criticism without mercy. Have you ever said things like, "I'm so stupid. How could I be so dumb? I don't deserve this"? If so, then you're not just disappointed, you're hurting yourself. Self-criticism is one of the most common and dangerous forms of self-destruction, yet society accepts it as very normal. Many people confuse it with discipline, seriousness, or striving to improve oneself. But in reality, there's a very thin line between being strict with yourself and being cruel to yourself, and most of us have crossed that line without even realizing it. When you make a mistake and blame yourself so much that you can't sleep, when you fail and despise yourself for not being good enough, when a small mistake leads you to thoughts like, "I can't do anything right," you're creating an emotional wound, no blood, but deep. At first, these criticisms might seem to help you stay alert, but repeated enough, they become an underlying voice in your head, saying this whenever you face difficulty: "You're nothing." This voice will appear every time you want to start something new, every time you get complimented, every time you have a chance to grow. It whispers, "You don't deserve this." That gradually forms a distorted ego, one where you no longer see your worth, no longer believe in your abilities, and reject all good things simply because you think you're not worthy. This is self-sabotaging. You don't fail because of others, but because you retreat before even fighting. Why is this so dangerous? Because it's not obvious, it's not immediate. It doesn't cause any major scenes, but it wears you down little by little. A person who once dreamed of many things can turn into someone who simply drags on, just because they've gotten used to despising themselves, and sadly they even think that's humility. But no, that's not humility, that's self-rejection in silence. So what should you do? First, you need to relearn how to talk to yourself. Pay attention to the words you use when you make mistakes. Instead of "I'm so dumb," try "I made a mistake, and I'll do it again." Instead of "No one needs me," try "I feel lonely, but this feeling will pass." You can also write a letter to yourself after each failure, not to complain, but to practice self-compassion. Write down what you've learned, what you still do well, and words of encouragement as if you were writing to a dear friend who's hurt. And remember this, you can fix your mistakes without hating yourself. You can grow without stepping on your own worth. You can make mistakes and still deserve to be loved. A strong person is not one who never makes mistakes, but one who dares to admit their mistakes and move forward, without beating their soul after every fall. Mechanism 2, emotional isolation, when you lock your heart and wonder why you're lonely. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work, responsibility, or relationships. It comes from having to suppress all your emotions every day and pretending everything is fine. Fine when you're tired, fine when you're hurt, fine when you're desperate. You smile and say, "It's okay," even though inside it feels like a flood. You keep everything to yourself. Don't tell anyone, don't share, don't complain. Not because you're good at enduring, but because you're afraid that if you open up, you'll break. Emotional isolation is not a sign of strength. It's how you build a stone wall around your soul so no one can see your weakness. But what you don't realize is, when you block the pain from coming out, you're also blocking other emotions from coming in. Warmth, connection, love, understanding, they all stay outside, and then you ask yourself, why do I always feel lonely even though I have friends? Why am I not truly close to anyone? Why do I always feel disconnected? The answer lies in, you don't give anyone the chance to see the real you. And that's what makes loneliness the room that you've locked yourself in and forgotten the key. Maybe you've been judged when expressing your emotions. Maybe you've been hurt after opening your heart. Maybe you grew up in an environment where weakness was shameful and tears were incompetence. But now you're grown and you have the right to choose how you live. You don't have to continue living the way you were taught. The consequence of prolonged emotional suppression is a body that's always tired, a mind that's always tense, and a soul that's slowly empty. Not because you lack energy, but because you're spending too much energy on pretending to be fine every day. How to break free? Start by acknowledging your emotions, at least to yourself. Write them down. No need for eloquence. Just be honest. I'm sad. I'm jealous. I feel abandoned. You don't need to justify your emotions. You just need to let them be. Next, choose one trustworthy person to try sharing with, even if it's just a small part. Not to complain, but to reconnect the muscle of connection that you've neglected. When you share your true emotions, you allow others to come closer, and you allow yourself to feel less alone. You don't need to pretend to be strong to be loved. You don't need to hide your pain to be respected. You just need to live authentically, and you'll be surprised to find that vulnerability at the right time is the true expression of a strong inner self. Mechanism 3. Comparing yourself to unrealistic standards. The shortest path to inner dissatisfaction. There is a type of suffering that's very modern. You're not being insulted, no one is hurting you, your work is fine, your health is good. But every time you open your phone, scroll through a success photo, a story of progress, a seemingly ideal life, you feel inferior, slow, and something seems off. No one is forcing you to race, but you still feel like you're being left behind. Comparing yourself to others is a common self-destructive mechanism, so much so that almost no one escapes it completely. Social media and modern life push us into a silent battle. Who lives better? Who succeeds earlier? Who seems happier? The problem is we don't compare fairly. We take our starting points, circumstances, wounds, and personal progress and compare them to someone else's brief highlight moments. Stoic philosophy warned about this more than 2,000 years ago. Epictetus taught, "Do not envy the wealthy, because you don't see the sacrifices they've made. Compete only within what you control." And that still holds true today. You can't control other people's lives, but you can absolutely control how you react to what you see. When you blindly compare yourself, you lose two precious things: gratitude and focus. Instead of reflecting on what you've overcome, you only see what others have. Instead of focusing on improving yourself, you get distracted by standards that aren't yours. Gradually, you'll always feel like something's missing. Time missing skills, missing recognition, missing reasons to be happy. The irony is the person you're comparing yourself to might be comparing themselves back to you. They might also be tired of maintaining their own mask. But social media and modern life don't show that. It only shows what makes you doubt yourself the most. The escape is not in trying to outdo others, but in learning to redefine success by personal standards. Success might be a peaceful morning without pressure. It might be keeping the habit of reading every night. It might be daring to say no to something that doesn't make you happy. It might be living true to yourself in a world full of expectations. A Stoic doesn't live to defeat others, but to defeat themselves, and that's the only way to break free from the harmful cycle of comparison. Every day, just be a little better than the version of you from yesterday. You don't need to stand out. You just need to be honest. You don't need to go fast. You just need to go in the right direction. And you don't need to please every gaze. You just need to stop turning your back on yourself. Mechanism 4. Avoiding change due to fear of instability. When you choose to stay with what drains you. There is a familiar paradox in mental life. We clearly know what is draining us, yet we choose to stay with it. A job that makes you wake up feeling heavy, a relationship that shrinks you day by day, a lifestyle that distances you more and more from yourself. You're not happy, you're not content, but you still don't leave. Why? Because the familiar, even if toxic, feels safer than uncertainty. Because the human brain is always programmed to avoid risk before seeking happiness. And because we comfort ourselves by saying, at least here, I know what I have to endure. But if I step out, who knows what lies ahead? But what few say is, every day you choose to stay, you are trading your life energy, your trust, and your time for something that has expired. And over time, you don't just lose new opportunities, but also the spiritual strength to change. From fearing change, you eventually stop believing in change altogether. Stoic philosophers like Seneca once wrote, "Procrastination is the softest form of death." This death isn't of the body, but of the spirit, when you no longer dare to dream of anything different, and that procrastination often isn't loud. It comes in phrases like, "It's okay for now," "I'll deal with it later," "I'll figure it out another time." The consequence of staying too long in what drains you is becoming numb to your own emotions. You start to believe that you only deserve this. When you see others change, you no longer feel envy. You feel alienated. So what should you do? First, separate fear from reality. Write down the worst thing that could happen if you change. Then write down the best thing that could happen. Between those two extremes is the reality you will have to go through. Not necessarily smooth, but definitely more vibrant than your current state. Second, try small changes. You don't need to quit your job, break up, or leave right away. Just start doing something different. An evening without scrolling through your phone, a conversation you've been avoiding, a small step towards something you enjoy. Small changes create mental momentum, and gradually you'll be strong enough to face bigger changes. A Stoic living by this principle understands that we can't control outcomes, but we can absolutely control our reactions. And the first reaction should be not to stay in what weakens us just because it's familiar. You don't know what awaits ahead, but you know very well what's happening if you don't change. And sometimes knowing that is enough to get started. Mechanism 5. Overdependence on external validation, living to be recognized instead of living to live. Some people live their entire lives not because of what they want, but because they fear what others think. Every decision is measured by the gaze around them. Every step is weighed. Will people laugh at me? Will this be seen as silly? Will I be seen as a failure? And so, day by day, they don't live. They perform. We are programmed to need recognition. That's very human. But when recognition becomes the standard for everything we do, it is no longer motivation. It becomes a chain. You start choosing a career you don't love just because it sounds successful. You choose a lifestyle that doesn't suit you just because everyone else is doing it. You hide your pain because you have to act fine. and you force a smile every day because who isn't supposed to be strong? The irony is, the more you live to be recognized, the more you feel inadequate. Compliments are quickly forgotten while expectations never stop. The more you try to please everyone, the further you move away from yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't waste time thinking about what others think of you, unless you want to become their copy." Stoic philosophy always encourages people to return to their inner compass, to act not for applause, but because it aligns with the values they pursue. When you overdepend on external validation, you will easily burn out. Not because the work is hard, but because you always have to control your image. Not because relationships are complicated, but because you're not allowed to be yourself in them. And eventually you will reach a suffocating point where everything feels wrong, but you don't know where to start. So, how do you break free? First, ask yourself this question before every decision. If no one knows I did this, would I still want to do it? If the answer is yes, then that is something coming from within you, not from someone else's expectations. Second, write down the personal values that are most important to you: honesty, freedom, kindness, growth. When you act based on those values, you will feel grounded, even if no one is applauding, because you know you are living with purpose. And finally, practice mindfulness every time you are triggered by praise or criticism. Remember, compliments do not define you. Criticism does not negate you, they are merely opinions. And you do not need to live based on the opinions of the world. No one understands you like you do. Don't live for applause. Live according to your inner voice, because that is the only thing that remains when all the stage lights fade. Mechanism 6. Turning yourself into an unyielding warrior. All the time, when you appear strong but are actually exhausted from holding it all in, there is a type of damage that no one sees because the person carrying it never admits that they are hurting. They always say, "I'm fine." They always smile, always solve problems, always take on responsibilities, always support others. And they take pride in this, until one day they no longer have the strength to stand firm, the need to always be strong, always resilient, always in control of emotions. Sounds admirable, but it can actually be an incredibly draining, self-destructive mechanism. It keeps you from showing your weaknesses, doesn't allow you to rest, doesn't let you say, "I can't take it anymore." And this suffocates your inner self, turning you into a shell that appears strong but slowly becomes empty over time. In Stoic thought, strength isn't about denying emotions, but about learning to manage and observe them. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You may fall into adversity, but don't let your soul be carried away by it. Observe it like a good soldier observing the battlefield." This does not mean hiding sadness or forcing yourself to keep fighting endlessly. On the contrary, it takes courage to admit your limits and understand that an exhausted soul can't protect anyone, not even itself. A person who is always in battle mode is prone to two extremes. Either they never allow themselves to rest, or when they break down, they cannot get back up. They confuse perseverance with never allowing themselves to be weak. They mistake self-respect for self-destruction. And worse, they often feel guilty when they need help, as if asking others to listen is a sign of failure. It's important to understand. True strength doesn't come from never falling, but from knowing when to rise at the right moment, when to keep going, and when to stop. You can live with ideals and responsibilities, but you are not a machine, you are human, and humans need recovery. Learn to rest at the right time. You don't need to disappear, you don't need to collapse, just take a step back to catch your breath. Learn to say, "I need some space today," without feeling ashamed. Learn to breathe, to do nothing, to feel yourself when you don't need to force anything. A warrior is not just strong on the battlefield. They are stronger when they know how to step down from the horse, take off the armor and tend to their wounds. You don't need to force yourself to deserve love. You are already valuable even when you're tired. You don't always have to be the one people rely on. Sometimes you are allowed to lean on someone else. And sometimes you just need to give yourself a place to rest. Mechanism 7. Always postponing. What makes you happy? When you know exactly what you need but keep saying later, there is a very common paradox in modern life. We know what makes us feel alive, but we keep postponing it. A trip we've always dreamed of, a hobby we used to love, a conversation we've wanted to have for a long time, a small habit that lightens our heart. Everything gets placed into the later category. I'll write later. I'll learn the piano later. I'll start over later. Later. When I have the time, money, energy, confidence, motivation. But later is a place no one has ever stepped foot in. Postponing happiness is a very subtle form of self-destruction. It doesn't cause immediate pain, but it makes your life lose its vitality. You're still alive, still working, still laughing, but inside, it's a barren land. The more you postpone, the more you forget what it feels like to touch what truly moves you. A Stoic does not live waiting for the ideal moment. They live by the principle. Whatever aligns with your values, you act on it within your ability. Seneca once wrote, "We do not have short time. We waste time meaninglessly." And nothing is more meaningless than waiting for perfect conditions to allow yourself to be happy. The essence of happiness isn't about the scale of action, but about being fully present. It could be a 15-minute walk alone every evening, sitting down to write a few lines of emotion in the morning, or listening to a song you used to love in the evening. No need for grandeur, just something real. The consequence of postponing happiness isn't just that you lose joy. It's that you slowly lose the ability to feel it. Eventually, when you have the conditions, time, money, and energy, you may no longer feel the inspiration to start. Because your inner self has gotten used to passing through each day without truly living. How can you change? Start by writing a list of things that make you feel alive. No matter how small, don't overthink it. Just be honest. Then choose one thing, just one, and do it this week. Don't wait for the perfect day. Don't wait for time to come. Don't wait for perfection. And remind yourself you don't need to deserve happiness to feel joy. You don't need to achieve something first before being happy. You don't need to wait until everything is perfect to live authentically. You just need to dare to start. You just need to allow yourself. Don't let the most precious things always fall to the bottom of your priority list. Life is not a draft. You are living in the final version, and you don't know how many pages you have left to write. Happiness doesn't come after success. Happiness is what gives you the strength to reach success in your own way. Conclusion: recognize to heal, because you deserve a healthy mind. No one grows up without carrying some scars in their soul. No one goes through life without losing themselves somewhere, in pressure, in expectations, in seemingly harmless repeated actions. And then we get used to being tired, used to holding ourselves together, used to telling ourselves, it's fine, while inside, there's an entire region of instability. The scariest thing is not that you are weak. The scariest thing is that you don't know why you are weak, and even more so, you don't know how to become strong again. The 7 self-destructive mechanisms we've gone through, from self-criticism, suppressing emotions, comparing yourself, avoiding change, living for external validation, turning yourself into an unyielding warrior to postponing happiness, are not faults. They are survival responses you once needed to overcome something. But the problem is, you've kept them for too long, too tightly, to the point that they no longer protect you. They are now holding you back. So what's important is not to blame yourself, but to recognize. Because only when you see clearly can you change, and only when you understand can you forgive yourself. The Stoic philosophy teaches that you cannot control the world outside, but you can always control the way you live, the way you think, the way you react, the way you go through each day. Start by stopping, looking inside, and asking, why am I living this way? Does it still hold true? You don't need to become a perfect version to be loved. You don't need to heal everything in one night. You just need to start with a small action, a light thought, a choice to be braver than yesterday. The journey is yours. The change is yours. The freedom is yours. And if there's one thing you should do right now, it is, don't wait anymore. Don't postpone yourself. Live, be gentle, and start coming back.